So I will let Gretchen Moore from the Albany Guardian Society get things going.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here. And so this is a small but mighty group. So I think this is going to be an absolutely terrific presentation, not because of me, but because of you. So if you didn't already know, November is National Family Caregivers Month. And so what a great time on November 8th for us to talk about caregiving, right? So today's presentation is coping with caregiving strategies for the caregiver. And hopefully over the course of the next a little bit less than an hour, because I don't want you to be late for lunch, we're going to be able to talk a little bit about caregiving and the importance of caregiving and the importance of care receiving, as well as some strategies to help you get through. So hopefully that sounds good with all of you. And first of all, you ever feel like this? My life is around here somewhere, right? And that's true for those of us who are in the middle of caregiving. It's true for those of us who are in the middle of receiving care. It's true for all of us at some point in our life. But I think as caregivers, we feel like this more often than not. And so I just saw that cartoon and it really resonated with me. So hopefully we're going to be able to help you get a little bit of your life back. In a previous life of mine, I was a teacher. And as a teacher, one of the things I love to do is give quizzes. So we're going to start today with a quiz because I want to get your brains going. And I also want you to understand a little bit about the statistics around caregiving and why caregiving is so important. And in particular, family and friend and unpaid caregiving is so important to our society. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give, these are all multiple choice, which is great. I'll read the question, and then by a show of hands, I'm going to see what you think the answer is. First of all, as of 2020, what is the estimated number of family caregivers in the U.S.? A, 8 million, B, 28 million, C, 38 million, or D, 48 million. How many people think it's A? Show of hands. B, C, D, and then what I always say, oh, you guys were all good. I usually have somebody in the back who doesn't raise their hand, and then I say unwilling to commit. All right, so unwilling to commit is still an okay answer, but you guys did a really good job. It's actually somewhere between 48 and 50 million, okay, family caregivers in the US. It's a lot of folks who are doing this really, really important work. All right, next question. As of 2020, what percentage of family caregivers have a paying job outside of their caregiving role? 41%, 51%, 61%, or 71%? How many people think it's A, B, C, D? You got it right. Right now, it's about 61% of caregivers are unpaid and, have a paying job outside of their unpaid caregiving role. So it's not quite 70%, but it's over 50%. And it's pretty hard to juggle a job, whether it's full-time or part-time, and the very large job of being a caregiver. All right. How much do unpaid family caregivers spend annually on out-of-pocket caregiver costs? $1,200, $3,200, $5,200, or $7,200 a year? How many people think it's A, B, C, D? It's a smart group. D, $7,200 a year is the average out-of-pocket cost that caregivers spend. And for many people, that can represent anywhere between 25 to 30% of their annual income. All right, so it's a lot of money. Okay, it's time and it's a lot of money. I have all women in the room. There were mostly women in the full session. But what percentage of American unpaid family caregivers are men? Is it 29%, 39%, 49%, or 59%? How many people think it's A?
Yeah.
A.
So much.
B, C, D. What's the answer? It's B, 39%. So it's not half, but it's not nobody. There are a fair amount of men, 39%, who are out there providing caregiving to whomever it is, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a parent, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a friend. There are a number of people. We need to remember that caregivers, although by and large, the largest percent are women, there are a number of men out there who are caregivers. And as time goes by, we see more and more men stepping up in the caregiving role. And 5, true or false? You get a 1 or 2. Caregiver guilt adds to stress and worsens health. How many people think that's true? I better see all your hands go up, right? Both hands. Yes. Caregiver guilt, caregiver burnout definitely can add to the stress and worsen the health of the caregiver. And just so you guys know that I didn't just make these numbers up and just sit around last night trying to figure out what numbers can I make. These numbers actually came from the AARP Caregiving in the US 2020 report. So these numbers were from 2020. I would venture to guess that since 2020, some of these numbers have gone up even higher, but that is where that information was found. One of my favorite quotes, I've used it for a lot of my caregiver presentations, comes from former First Lady Rosalind Carter. I don't know if any of you have heard this before, but she says there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So every person in this room has a role in caregiving, right? Do you agree with the statement? Yeah, absolutely. So caregiving affects all of us at some point in time in our lives, and for some of us at numerous or multiple times in our lives. So I was invited today to come and talk to you about caregiving. And so you kind of think, well, here's Gretchen, and she's from Albany Guardian Society, whatever that is. And what makes me the appropriate person to stand here and talk about caregiving to all of you? Well, caregiving has affected me in a number of different ways. So first of all, I talk about me being a professional caregiver. Now, I'm not a home health care aide, and I'm not someone who goes out into somebody's home to provide care. But since moving to the Capital Region almost 20 years ago, I have worked in 3 different organizations that all in some way provide care and support to older adults. So currently, I am at Albany Guardian Society. And if you don't know about Albany Guardian Society, we are an organization that helps older adults try to age as safely and independently and as well as they can. And we do it through education and information. And the thing that most people know about us is we offer free classes, everything from exercise to technology to Medicare to how to avoid scams. And the beautiful thing about Albany Guardian Society is everything we do is free. And so in my role at Albany Guardian Society, I meet an awful lot of older adults and their caregivers, as well as professionals, and we help try to provide education. So we do, in fact, provide caregiving in an education and an informational role at Albany Guardian Society. I joined them last September of 2022. Prior to that, for over 8 years, I was with LifePath, Supportive Services for Older Adults. And if you don't know LifePath, LifePath offers adult day programs, they offer congregate meal sites, and they actually have the largest home-delivered Meals on Wheels program in Albany, and they exist to help older adults. And so I was there for 8 years, and I would spend time in the congregate meal sites, I spent time at the day programs, I delivered a whole lot of home-delivered meals, and we definitely served in the role of caregiving for older and vulnerable adults, particularly those adults who didn't have anyone else in their life to help them. Prior to April of 2014, way back in March of 2007, I actually relocated to the Capital Region to join the Alzheimer's Association. And if any of you know anything about the disease of Alzheimer's, you know that there is a huge role for caregivers in someone with Alzheimer's or dementia. And it's a very difficult and challenging role. And at the Alzheimer's Association, I would do speaking, I would do education, but I also spent a lot of time in the support groups and a lot of time working with the folks with Alzheimer's as well as their caregivers. So professionally, I have been really involved in caregiving. But I have a personal story with caregiving. So what's my story? Rosalind Carter started with, if you're, everybody either was a caregiver, is a caregiver, will be a caregiver, or needs a caregiver. So I was a caregiver. I was a caregiver to my mom. For the 6 years after my dad passed away, I was her primary caregiver. And she passed away last September, and she had colon cancer, but I was there for her in every way that I could while having a full-time paying job. So I fit the role. But I was also a caregiver to not one, but two of my sisters, 3 girls in my family. My sister Lynette, the blonde, she's the youngest, my sister Michelle, and myself. True story, all 3 of us, breast cancer. My sister, my youngest sister, Lynette, was the first one diagnosed. She was diagnosed at 36 years of age. She was a single mom, and she had 3 small children. So the family rallied, and we became her caregivers. And so we were there. We helped her through everything she needed. And she is now, I think she's coming up on 20 years as a survivor. So she's doing, her kids are all grown and finished college and doing great things. So she's doing really well. My next sister, Michelle, was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 46. She had a very different journey than Lynette, but she also required caregiving on the part of myself as well as my whole family. We did everything for her. She made some different choices in her life. She had a much shorter but very enjoyable life, and she passed away with cancer at the age of 48 back in 2012. But we were caregivers. I was a caregiver, and each of us was a caregiver for each other. So I know all about what it is to be a caregiver, especially for somebody going through breast cancer. I am a caregiver, okay? So we don't always decide when we're going to become a caregiver. Often it just becomes thrust upon us. In December 2022, which was just this past December, my husband, who at the time was 64 years old, and we've been married for 28 years, suddenly had a stroke. We weren't expecting that. So that thrust me into the role of caregiving, which I continue to do. The good news is he's doing really well. He's improved greatly. I'll tell you a little bit more about the RV as we go through the presentation. And I continue to be his caregiver. So I was a caregiver. I am a caregiver. Do I think I will be a caregiver? Yeah. I've got a sister who's in her late 50s. I've got a brother who's in his late 60s. And I'm guessing that as they age, there might be some health issues along the way that thrust me back into caregiving, not to mention the fact that I continue to caregive for my husband. And then, of course, I have needed a caregiver. So in July of 2006, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And again, I was 47 years old. And so I needed caregiving. And I had no idea what that meant. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to accept help. I thought I could do this on my own, and I couldn't. I had a host. My family was amazingly supportive. My friends were amazingly supportive. My coworkers were amazingly supportive, whether it's the stacks of food that they brought. I had so much food, it was crazy. They would bring food. They would take me to chemo. They would be there just to hold my hand. And I discovered that as a care receiver, it's really important to accept the care that's offered, not only because I needed the help, but because it made them as caregivers have the opportunity to do something. And they really valued that. So I often say to folks who are going through this, and they say, I don't need a caregiver. I can do it on my own. I don't need your help. Well, one, you probably do need the help. But number two, give the person the opportunity to step in and help you, because that's going to be helpful to them. All right. So my story is, again, I've lived every step of the caregiving journey. I will continue to live every step of the caregiving journey. And although it can be difficult, although it can be frustrating, and although it can be challenging, it is also incredibly rewarding. And so you've heard my story. I've got a brief video that I want to share with you. It's a woman by the name of Kimberly Peters Smith, and she wants to share a little bit about her cancer caregiving story. And if I'm really lucky and I'm good with technology, we will get to it. And of course, and Rita can attest to this, when we tested it just before this program, it worked. So now let's see if we can get it to work again. And let's see if I can get to full screen. Come on. And caregiving requires patience, and so does presenting.
In 2015, my aunt and I received an email from my mom titled "Cancer Has Spread."
I don't know why it's not coming up.
She was letting us know that her breast cancer had spread to her liver and lungs. I had only known my mother had been battling breast cancer for 2 years before this, but she had secretly been receiving treatment for the previous 11 years. After reading her message, the tears started flowing as I typed, "With you all the way, no matter where the journey leads." About a year later, she passed away. I learned so many life lessons as I cared for my mother in her final years. I learned what it means to be a cancer caregiver and a cancer survivor. I'd like to share some of my biggest life lessons for those caring for loved ones with cancer. First, ask your loved one how they want to be supported on the journey and reassure them that you're with them all the way. My mom told me that she was more concerned with maintaining a good quality of life than extending the length of her life. My mom was fiercely independent, so it was important for me to just pay attention and see when there was an opportunity to help her do the things she loved. My second life lesson is to live in the moment. It's easy to waste time worrying about the future, but it's so much better to spend your time making the most of every moment as it comes. After my mother stopped treatments in her final months, our whole family took a trip to Disney World, and it was the trip that my mother had always dreamed of. With her children and grandchildren by her side, we were able to smile again, and I took in every precious moment as it came. My third life lesson is the importance of self-care when you're a caregiver. As my mom's health began to decline and she needed more help, I put my own health on the back burner. But the more I neglected my own health, the less likely my mom was to ask for my help. I realize now that if I had taken better care of myself, instead of just focusing on her, it would have made things easier for both of us. I often think about my mother's journey with cancer, and even though cancer ultimately took her life, I still think of her as a cancer survivor and thriver because she lived life to the fullest until the very end. She fought a long, courageous, and relentless fight. For me, this was our victory, and I'm proud to say that I was right there fighting with her as much as she would allow me to. So I guess that makes me a cancer survivor too. And it was an absolute honor to be with her all the way.
I think that she just says it really well. And let's hope I can get back to there I go, back to where I need to be. And she talks about a couple of life's lessons that she learned along the way. And I want to elaborate a little bit more on those with regard to being a caregiver, or as I'm going to talk about now, being a care partner. Oh, look, and now my screen sharing came up. That's all right. We'll make it go away. So first of all, one of the things that she mentioned is ask your loved one or ask the person you're caring for how they want to be supported in the journey. So often as caregivers, as care partners, we think we know best. We think we know what to do. We think we've got all the answers. And we don't involve the person who needs the care in that particular conversation. And so it's really important to make sure that we ask how they want to be supported. And one of the things that we try to do, and I know this whole presentation is talking about caregiving, and we're talking about being a caregiver, but I really like people to think about themselves not as caregivers, okay, which is something I'm doing for you, but rather as being a care partner. You are partners in this role. And it's not just about having one partner. You need to have a team. You need to assemble the caregiving team. And you need to find out from the person who's receiving the care, who do they want to be on that team? You know, family and friends and medical providers, healthcare clinicians. Who is it that needs to be on that team? And the bigger the team, the better off, because the more that you can spread, you know, all of the different things that may need to be done. So you really want to look at being a care partner and making sure that the person who is receiving the care is part of that conversation and part of those decisions, right? Try to see things from that person, the care receiver's perspective. You know, when I was helping with my sisters, and of course I'm the older sister, they were both younger than me, I knew best. They needed to do this. They needed to do that. They needed to take care of themselves. And that wasn't necessarily the way they thought about it. I needed to start seeing things from their perspective. The way that I chose to take care of my journey through cancer, the way my sister Lynette chose to go through her journey, were fairly similar. The way my sister Michelle chose to go through her journey was very different. She chose quality of life over quantity of life. She chose to do things in a very different way. She chose homeopathic remedies as opposed to Western medicine. Those were her choices. And as much as I kept thinking, I need to tell her how to do this, it wasn't for me to decide, it was for her to decide. So I needed to learn to see things from her perspective and for me to be non-judgmental about that. That was her choice. And ask questions. How can you expect to support the person? How can you expect to know what they want if you don't ask them? Ask them what they want. Ask them how they feel. Ask them what their intention is. You need to ask questions and you need to be prepared and open to whatever answers you might receive. All right. Provide words of encouragement. I got so much encouragement through my own cancer journey, and it was so helpful to me along the way. So encouraging is always helpful. But beyond that, beyond the words of encouragement, beyond the conversation, beyond the doing for someone, was the just be there. One of the best things that the care partner can do for someone is to just be there. So that's how you might be able to be a successful care partner in being able to support someone along their caregiving journey. Another thing that Kimberly said in her video was live in the moment. Now, she talked about living in the moment by taking her mother to Disney World and having this great extended family trip, which is a great thing to do. They were able to really have a great time. When I was caring for my mom, she had always wanted to do an Alaskan cruise. And so one of the things we were able to do is my sister Lynette and I were able to accompany her, and we did an Alaskan cruise, which was wonderful. Right now, one of the things my husband and I had talked about for years and years, we talked about when we retire, when we get to that age, which we thought was still a long way away, we're going to buy an RV and we're going to travel all over the country. Well, with his stroke and some other health issues, this past year, we realized, you know what? We don't know what kind of time we have ahead of us. We don't know what life is going to be. We want to live in the moment. So this summer, we bought an RV and we've taken a couple of trips so far, and we're looking forward to lots of great, wonderful trips that we can enjoy and we can learn to live in the moment. But living in the moment doesn't have to mean a trip to Disney World and an Alaskan cruise and go out and make a huge purchase of an RV. It can be much more simple than that. And it's really important for the caregiver to find out how to live in the moment. One, you need to really focus on things. Focus on the details around you. Focus on things like when you go outside, take a look. It's a sunny day today. Look at the sunshine. Look at the fact we still have some leaves on trees, not a lot, but look at how the sun comes through the leaves. Look at a sunrise, a sunset. Just look around and focus on the details and take them in and enjoy them, because so often we go through entire days and entire weeks without ever looking at what's around us. And that can really help us. And focus on the details that are within you. All right. Just things like being conscious and being in the present. When you're eating, how many people just eat and then run and have no idea what you tasted, what you ate, somebody said, what did you have for breakfast? I have no idea. Focus on the food you're eating. Focus on the things that are focus on how you feel. All right. And just take a moment to kind of internalize that. Be conscious of your thoughts. We have hundreds of thousands of thoughts every day. Try to be conscious of what's going on in your brain. And any activities you do, whether they're your own activities, whether they're activities you're doing with the person you're caring for, do them with intent. Right? Don't do them just for the sake of doing them. Try not to do them just because you have to, but think about the intent behind it, and think about the fact that what you're doing is not only helping that person, but hopefully helping you a little bit along the way. If you're, helping them with preparing food and sitting down and eating with them, do it with intent and have them maybe assist you in it, and think about what it is that we're sitting down to eat. So find ways to be purposeful in the activities that you do. And be present. And it seems easy. I'm standing here, I'm present, right? Except my mind may be thinking of what I have to do this afternoon, or the fact I have to stop at the pharmacy when I go home and pick up my husband's prescription. No, be present. Be present with the person you're caring for. Be present with your family members. Be present if you're at work. Find a way, and it's difficult, but just think about, how can I be present in this moment? The next bullet says, do things you enjoy and enjoy them. So people are always saying to caregivers in particular, take time for yourself, go out and do something. If you love to dance, go out and go dancing. If you like to go to a movie, go to the movies. If you like to take a walk, take a walk. But for many people as caregivers, even though maybe they'll go do that because someone said go do it, the whole time they're doing it, the whole time you're walking, what are you thinking? I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be taking time to do this. I should be back taking care of my loved one. I should be taking care of my family. I should be doing something else. But there's always something else. So if you're going to go for a walk, be present and take the time and enjoy it. You deserve to have some enjoyment time. All right. When you get back and are taking on a task, then be focused and intentional on that task. But when you're trying to enjoy something, go and enjoy it. And remember, this is a journey. Caregiving is a journey, right? And our journey, as with my life, the journey continues. I was, I am, I will be, and even in the future, I may need a caregiver. So we need to think about this as, a spectrum. Where are we on our spectrum of caregiving? Sometimes things feel really overwhelming, really difficult, really challenging. You kind of think, I can't do this. And when things feel too overwhelming, remember, we've all heard the adage, right? One day at a time. Great adage from 12-step programs, one day at a time. But break it down even more, one task at a time, one thought at a time, one moment at a time. And they don't have a picture of an elephant here. They have a snail and a little ladybug. But how do they talk about eating the elephant? Have you ever heard that statement? How do you eat an elephant? You ever heard that? You never heard it either? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Yes. You can't eat the whole elephant. It's too much. But you do it one bite at a time. So one moment, one thought, one task, one day at a time. And I don't ever like thinking about actually eating elephants, but I don't think in the nutritional session today, I don't think she's talking about eating elephants. I think she's much more talking about vegetables and fish and omega-3s. Another thing that Kimberly talked about in the video that I know you've heard and you're going to hear it again, and we say it because it's important. A caregiver needs to take care of themselves, right? You can't take care of somebody else if you are not taking care of yourself. If you've been on a plane ever in your life and the airline attendant comes out and they talk about if the air pressure in the plane should drop and suddenly these oxygen masks come down from the ceiling, what are you supposed to do? Put on yours before you turn to help someone else who needs assistance. And the reason for that is you're no good to them if you pass out and can't help them. So the idea is your own oxygen first, and then you're going to be able to assist with whatever needs to be assisted. So how do you take care of yourself? Get regular physical activity. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to find it in your day, but find a way to get some physical activity because that is really important. It's important for your heart health. It's important for your brain health. It's important for your emotional health. Eat healthy. Well, you already heard this morning. I know they talked a little bit about the Mediterranean diet. I know we've talked about nutrition. Eating healthy is really important, of course, for the person who is going through the disease, but it's really important for the person who is a caregiver in order to be able to keep up their energy and their stamina and do what they need to do. And get enough sleep. Does anybody here have any idea about how much sleep somebody who is over 55 is supposed to get every night? Yeah, so 8, I mean, quite a bit. They say 7 to 9, but airing at 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night is what they say you really need. And I often see eyes roll and hear some snickers, right? Because we're like 8 to 9 hours, I can't get that much sleep. But sleep is so important for the body and the mind to be able to do all the things it needs to do. And one of the things I have found in particular this past year, because I am definitely over 55, with my husband and going through his caregiving, I found that I was really not good. I'd get very frustrated. I'd feel very challenged. I would really struggle if I hadn't gotten enough sleep. That was the thing that really got to me. Yeah.
Would you recommend caregivers take anything? Like what would you recommend they do if they're unable to sleep?
If they're unable to sleep, if you're unable to sort of get your mind to stop.
Your mind to keep going.
Right. So one of the things that they say, and you know, absolutely, if there's no other way, and looking towards, you know, medications or something to help someone sleep is the most drastic form. It's better if you can sleep unaided. And you say, well, how do I do that? Well, one, sometimes people find, and again, it's hard to do, especially if somebody's working. Sometimes it means maybe catching a nap during the day. You know, when I was younger, I would never, ever think about a nap. A nap, are you crazy? There's no way I can nap. Now I find a little, you know, 20 or 30-minute nap in the afternoon can really re-energize me. And I can sometimes find the time for that. The other thing they talk about trying to find ways to get sleep is at bedtime, at least an hour before bed, you turn off the screens. Blue light is notorious for impacting our sleep ability. turn off the phone, turn off the TV, turn off the computer. Reading a book is fine, but they really say that that blue light makes a big difference in our circadian rhythm and our ability to sleep. Other things, some people talk about having a glass of warm milk before they go to bed, or finding a way to decompress before going to bed in the evening. Laying there and try not to relive all of the stressors of the day and all of the, what am I going to do tomorrow? All right. Because that's just going to get our brain engaged. Just the idea of finding a way to maybe think about, what am I most grateful for that happened today? And so it's difficult. And if everything else fails, you talk to your physician about what do I need to do to try to get some sleep. But it really is important to be able to continue as a healthy person, let alone as a successful caregiver.
We tend to see one of the comorbidities.
Yep.
You might get high blood pressure, you might develop diabetes, whatever.
Yep. Yep. Do you think she's talking about anybody in particular? Yeah. So, but it happens to many of us. And of course, one of the things that can impact our sleep greatly are the medications that we take for all of those various comorbidities. And again, it's something you talk to your physician about. It's something you try to figure out. How can I safely try to get more sleep? But the idea is sleep is really important. And if you can find a way to do it, and even if right now you're only getting 4 hours sleep and you can find a way to get 5, and I'm not saying it has to be uninterrupted because I wake up all night long, but the great thing is I can go back to sleep. All right. And of course, for those of us with our smartwatches and our Fitbits, and then we can track our sleeping and how long have I been in deep sleep and how long have I been in REM and how long have I been awake. We can get an idea of what's happening, but sleep is really important. Take care of yourself by making time for yourself. And again, I know we often say there's not enough hours in a day. We were just talking about the time warp a little while ago. 1 minute it's 10 o'clock and the next minute it's noon. And we're like, what happened to the last 2 hours? Find a way to plan a routine that you can find some time in the day, every day, to take at least a few minutes for yourself. I have tried really hard to be good about taking a walk every day. That gets my physical activity, that gets me out of the situation. If I'm at work, I go out and I walk on my lunch, and it gives me that 30 minutes of me time. And I can find 30 minutes in a day, as busy as my days are, to be able to go out and do that walk. One of the things that can happen to caregivers is they can become very isolated. They become so involved and consumed with the caregiving role that they don't get out and about anymore, that they aren't staying connected. They're not meeting up with their friends anymore. They're not answering phone calls from folks, and they become just completely isolated in their caregiving world. And that's not healthy. All right. Isolation is hugely detrimental to our physical health and our mental health. So find ways to try to get out, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's, believe it or not, getting out and about can be going to the grocery store. Now, prior to caregiving for my husband, I hated grocery shopping. I just hated it. And I know you can order in and you can do, have everybody deliver. But now I find going to the grocery store, that's my release. I can get out and I can be by myself, and I can, just wander up and down the aisles. Find a way to get out and about and really do your best to stay connected to the people in your life, your family, your friends, your coworkers, whomever it may be. Keep medical and dental appointments. As caregivers, do you think we ever decide that we ever miss appointments or put them off? Today, Dr. Nagandi was in there speaking. She's my oncologist. I'm way overdue for my appointment with her because this past year has been just insane with all of my husband's appointments and everything that's been going on. And I've been putting off my you know, my own medical health. But what happens if I get sick? What happens if, you know, I'm not able to do the things I need to do? That's going to be a problem for me. It's going to be a problem for the person I'm caring for. So actually seeing her today, when I go back to the office today, I will be calling her office and I will be making my appointment, which is really important. The other thing that happens, and Kimberly talked about it in the video, is when she wasn't taking care of herself, that affected her mom. Her mom saw she wasn't taking care of herself, and her mom then said, you know what? I'm obviously too much for her. I'm not going to ask for her help now because I don't want to be that burden. So it did two things. It meant Kimberly wasn't taking care of herself, and it meant that her relationship with her mother was suffering because her mother didn't want to put a burden on her when she saw that she wasn't taking care of herself. So it's really important that we find a way to maintain our health and keep those medical and dental appointments. As much as we can, we want to stay positive. And I know it's hard. It's hard when there's so much coming at you and when maybe all the news we get isn't great and when it just seems overwhelming. But if we can just find something positive in each day, something positive in our relationship, something positive that happened, it can make a huge difference in your life as a caregiver, and it can make a huge difference in the relationship that you have with the person that you're caring for. And even if we do all of these things, even if we really try to be as good as we can, because caregiving can be challenging, difficult, frustrating, stressful, often we find caregivers go down the rabbit hole into caregiver burnout. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is caregiver burnout and what can we do to try to avoid it or come back out from it. I love this poster. You can't pour from an empty cup. Self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary, right? So you've got to find balance in your life. You've got to make sure that you are there fully to be able to do the things that you want and need to do. Caregiver burnout, again, it can happen to even the best intentioned caregivers. And the common signs and symptoms of caregiver burnout include ambivalence, often resentment, perhaps irritability. I've been there. Anxiety, helplessness, and it might even devolve into sadness and perhaps depression. All right. And again, these things make it very difficult to be a caregiver and make it very difficult for you to even continue your own life in the way that you would like to. So what can we do to avoid or to minimize our caregiver burnout? Again, when things are getting overwhelming, take frequent breaks from what you are doing. If what you're doing is very difficult or stressful or overwhelming, take a break. Step back. Say, I need to go out and get some air. Here's one of my favorite. There's this little word called no. Anybody here ever used it? Anybody here ever thought you should use it, but you haven't? We're going to practice right now. Everybody with me on the count of three, we're all going to say no. You ready? 1, 2, 3. No. Good job.
We can do it.
We can do it. You know, and sometimes we think we can do everything, and sometimes so much is asked of us. We have to build some boundaries because you know what? You're all great, wonderful, successful, amazing people, but you can't do everything. And you can't think that you can do everything. And sometimes you have to learn that there are things that you can say no to. And if you're going to say no, what's going to happen? How is it going to get done? Right? Because nobody else can do it as good as you. Right? Nobody else is going to be able to take it on or be as in control as you are. But sometimes you have to give it up. And this is where you share the load with others. You find other people who can help along the way. You go to the members of that care team that you and your care receiver have assembled, and you find ways that they can do things. And here's one of the things you really need to do is that when that very good friend or coworker or family member comes forward and says, what can I do to help? That's not when your answer is no. That's when your answer is yes, I could use your help. And then be prepared with something specific that you're going to ask them to do. Not a, no, I've got this. Somebody comes forward and says, what can I do to help? Say, you know what? It would be great if Thursday afternoon you could come and sit with my loved one so I can go off and do some errands. It would be great if on Friday you might be able to bring a meal over. It would be wonderful if you could meet me for a glass of wine this weekend. Think about what you need. Make sure you have that at the ready. And then don't hesitate. If somebody says, what can I do for you? They are asking. So take advantage of it. And by the way, if you say no to them, you are depriving them of the opportunity to help and do something. And they're asking because they want to. But know ahead of time, what is it that you need and what can you ask for help with? Yes. Yeah, that's okay.
What would you suggest are some tips or strategies to have that team meeting? Like, so like if one caregiver might be your mom and your husband, and then you have your kids sometimes, maybe they're adults.
Yep.
But none of them were thinking about it.
That's often the way. So what you need to do is you need to pull people together, and you need to kind of figure out who has what strengths, who has what skills, who's able to do what. So in my family, I was able to do the actual physical. I'm located, in the same geographic location. I can help with some of the hands-on kind of caregiving. My brother, who actually lives down in Washington, D.C. area, one wasn't here physically, but also he wasn't going to be coming and helping with my mom or helping with my sister in some of these daily chores. But the thing my brother could do, we used to call him Glenn, write a check, right? He could write a check. He could help. He actually paid for my mom to have them come and to have a house cleaner come and do some cleaning. He paid for them to come and clean her gutters. So he couldn't physically do something, but he could be involved. It's hard if people aren't on the same page about what's supposed to be being done. And so you try to find ways to work through it. There also, sometimes you can find somebody, a social worker, sometimes who can help mediate a team or a family or a team meeting, so that having an outsider assist can be easier than having a family member say, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. But the idea of having a number of people being able to help. Humor in every situation. Do your best to find it. Sometimes it feels like we can't find something funny in this situation, but you can. Laughter, they talk about laughter being the best medicine. It really is. Laughter does all kinds of great things for us. It releases endorphins and it creates dopamine and it actually burns calories. If you have a good hard laugh, you burn a lot of calories. Just saying. So if you can find any kind of humor, if you can lighten the situation, see if you can find some. Give yourself credit where credit is due. You're doing an awesome job. It's a difficult job. And sometimes people aren't giving you the credit, or maybe the person you're caring for isn't giving you the credit. So give yourself some credit. Let yourself know you are doing absolutely the best job that you can do. And don't beat yourself up if you feel like you can't do everything. Give others credit when credit is due, right? I know my relationship with my brother hasn't always been great, and I hate to give him credit for anything. But when he stepped forward and said, you know what? I'm going to pay for mom to have a house cleaner come and help her out because she can't do that now. I said, you know what? That's a great idea. I really appreciate that. And I gave him the credit for doing it. So give other people the credit. Recognize when you need help, and you will. We all need help at some point in our lives. And don't be afraid to ask for it. And again, be prepared when you ask for something to ask for something specific. And don't be afraid to ask again. And if somebody doesn't want to do something, generally they will say no. They will come up with an excuse. They can't do it. But most of the time I found through my various caregiving iterations on my journey that I would ask for help and it was there. And perhaps more than anything else, breathe. Sometimes we get so caught up in our everyday life that we forget to breathe. Now, I have a couple of friends who are yoga instructors, and they talk about all of the benefits of breathing. And not just that unconscious breathing that we do every day, but intentional and focused breathing can help realign us, can help recenter us, can help refocus us, and can bring us back into the present. So, if I can make this happen, we are going to do a little breathing exercise so that I can recenter and refocus and realign all of you, as long as it comes up for me. All right. We're going to follow the instructions of the breathing dot. Coming down to, where was it? Oh, and now, of course, you know, I love when, oh, here we go. Here we go. So it's going to tell us to breathe in and hold and breathe out. So we're going to all do this together. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. So that was 1 minute of breathing, intentional, focused breathing. This is actually on a wonderful free YouTube. It's called Calm. It's Breathing Bubble. They have a whole bunch of them out there. They have different backgrounds, whether it's the babbling brook or whether it's the sunrise over the mountains. But it's great to put that on, to just let the whole rest of the world go and just to focus on breathing in and breathing out. And I believe that there are there's a resource list on the back table. At least Eileen said she was going to copy it for me. It's not that one. Yeah, that's my list, but I think, and it has the websites where you can find this. It has some books on caregiving. It has some articles that can help with some of this information that I'm sharing today. So I keep talking about caregiving can be difficult. It can be challenging. It can be frustrating. Some people say sometimes it's a burden, right? But we all do it sometime in our lives. And believe it or not, there are benefits. And we have to recognize the benefits of what it means to be a caregiver. It can give many of us a sense of purpose. I feel like I'm doing something for my loved one. It can connect me to my humanity, that I'm trying to make a difference in the life of someone else. In many cases, it can help you connect in a really deep way to the loved ones that you have. I know during my caregiving with both of my sisters and with my mom, and somewhat with my husband, we found a deeper connection through our caregiving relationship, care partner relationship. It can be an opportunity to give back to those who cared for you, all right? A lot of folks, when it comes time, you know, when people are caring for their elderly parents, they feel like I'm doing this because my parents raised me and they gave to me. I now have an opportunity to give back to them, or giving back to whomever it is you're caring for. And some of us, the benefit of our caregiving is just knowing that whoever I'm caring for is going to be getting good care because I'm the one giving it. And they're going to be getting the best care that I am able to provide. And Kimberly said it in her video. I know from me, being a caregiver to my family members, to my mom, to my two sisters, to my husband, you know, it's an honor. It's a privilege that they trust in me to provide caregiving to them. So there are benefits to this somewhat, sometimes difficult, frustrating, challenging role. And recognize that we are lucky if someone has put caregiving into our hands because they trust us enough to know that we are going to be there for them. So always remember that. This is the Caregiver's Daily Affirmations from the Caregivers Survival Network. I'm just checking the time. I'm just going to read through it, and we're right at the end. I care for others with patience, love, and kindness. I live with courage and grace. I don't have to do it all. I let go of the things I cannot change. I accept myself and others without judgment. I make progress every day, whether I see it or not. I care for myself with dignity, love, and respect. I am not alone. I am capable. If nothing else, I am getting stronger every day. I am not afraid to ask for help. I am appreciated, and I am loved. And now what I normally tell everyone to do is you're going to do an exercise with me. You're going to take your right hand, you're going to put it up over your head, put it up high. You're going to drop your hand down, and you're going to pat yourself on the back, because as a caregiver, you are doing an amazing job. And if nobody else has told you that today or recently, I'm telling you now. Thank you. You are so appreciated, and you are doing an amazing job. So remember, caregiving is a journey. Along the way, there's going to be some bumps, occasional detour, but do your best to travel safe and try really hard to enjoy the ride. So my husband and I have our RV, and we're out there. That was just first weekend in October, we went up to New Hampshire to see the foliage. And there were bumps, and I think there was a detour, but we're doing our best to enjoy the ride. And I wish that for all of you as caregivers and care partners. And with that, I say thank you. So, yay. Yes, question.
How can, so I'm a, I guess you would say part-time caregiver now. And needed a caregiver. How do you, as a caregiver, help the person, your loved one, get past the guilt of like, I don't want to be an imposition on you. I don't want you,
Right.
you know, but how do you help them get past that?
So and it's hard because they say, my mother used to always say, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden to you. I don't want to be a burden to you. To which I would often reply, if I'm not here to help you and things get worse, your health worsens, your abilities decrease, the burden will increase. All right. So by me being here, you're actually relieving some of the burden. And the whole idea of, okay, maybe you don't want my help, but I want to help you. All right. That helps me. I used to often bring it back to an I, not a you, not a, you need my help. You need to do this. You shouldn't do that. It's a, I would like to help because it's something I would like to do. I would like to be there for you. I would like to take you to your appointments. I would like to do this. And I'm doing it because I want to. So please don't deprive me of something I want to do. And if you bring it back to what you would like to do as opposed to what they should do, it can be helpful. But it's difficult. Many, many people, especially I think some of the older folks and parents are really reluctant to accept help. And so, it's just a way to try to explain that this is something that you really want to do for them. And please don't take that privilege away from letting me do it. Any other questions? Yeah.
This isn't really a question.
Or
but
comments.
it's just a comment or
Yep.
perspective that I had. I think that sometimes as breast cancer survivors, we in a way become kind of a caregiver
Of ourselves.
And, I think a lot of what you said, like, kind of hit home to me, you know, that sometimes you have to back off, you know, you wanna do everything.
Want to do everything.
And to understand everything and eat right and take care of ourselves, but sometimes you've gotta back off
Mhm.
and just be.
Yep.
And relax
And you just be, and all you can do every single day, all you can do is the best you can do.
right.
All right. You
Right.
can't do what this standard is or that standard is or what you think you should be doing. All you can do is the best you can do.
Right.
And if you do the best you can do, then you're successful.
So thank
Right.
you for.
So, good.
for your talk, what you think about.
Good. And you know what? That's all we can do. We think about it and we can, I'm not perfect at this. I'm not a perfect caregiver. I'm not a perfect care receiver, but all we can do is think about it and try. All right. So I hope you all try. I hope you all go and enjoy lunch and take a tour of the Cancer Research Lab. So thank you for coming and thank you for being so engaging.